was through the war bonds. Our soldiers are fighting for us. We need to fight for them as well. And they had different propagandas. And in the 1940s, in the Sickles Tribune, they had lots of cartoon ads showing what we could do for them. And so moving on, some of these cartoons were funny, and I'll show you in a few moments. Some were very interesting, and it showed from different angles. Okay, so when dealing with World War II, the American government wanted to promote the war and find a way for the American citizens to help pay for these finances of it. This led to the war bonds and to the war loans campaign. So this was taken from the Sickles Tribune, and this was the ad. So the Second Victory Campaign for the raising of 13, I think that's billion, starts on April 12th, and everyone must do their part. The slogan for this loan is, "They give their lives, we loan our money." This certainly should not be asking too much. If our boys are willing to offer their lives, we should not object to investigating our money in the best security in the world, the United States of America. Get behind this with all you can spare, and then some. With this, another cartoon, U.S. all-out war effort. And it always promotes that we have to do our part to help our boys. Another slogan, "They give our lives, you lend your money." And here they show the soldiers' tools and the balancing of what we could do. This is a Bonds of America. So this was talking about New York City. Buy extra war bonds and hold them. So they talk about retreading mile by mile the German boundary. Hitler's legions are piling and destroying works that have cost billions of dollars, millions upon millions of lives. So from this particular ad in the paper, it shows, "For our sons, Mr. and Mrs. America, back the attack." And in every frame of the pictures is mom and dad saying, "What can we do for our son?" I'll just read the first one. "This is it, Mom, and our boy is part of it, taking his crack at the Axis. It's a long, hard way from Pearl Harbor, but they don't push America around. This is a scene in the home of Mr. and Mrs. America. It tells the story of tens of millions of Americans home today. It's a story of a great American people with their effort, their sons, their money backing the war, this war." Another particular example was, "This is how much money we got for the Second War loan. Boys, there's a real letter from home, Joe." So here is an example of leader in the war bond campaign. So it just shows what women could also do besides working in the factories. They can help support and help promote the war bonds. So here's an article. It shows what $18.75 will buy for an American soldier. But first they give an example of what can a woman buy with $18.75. So it just shows different examples of like an Easter hat, bottle of perfume, but down below it actually shows what this could actually help American soldiers, because they are going to places that could be cold, could be rainy, but it shows you the price of each thing that $18.75 could go for. So this is not the full list, but here is Signal Hill servicemen that were in World War II. In a few moments, I'm going to talk about the Southern California Military School, but with there, a lot of soldiers who had graduated from high school automatically went into the service. So, has anybody ever heard of the tanker ship, the Signal Hills? Okay. So during the war, it was a tanker that wanted to help win the war. However, there was not just one name, there was actually three different names. The first one was the Signal Hills, that's what it started with. The second one was the Henry M. Dow's, and the last one was the Guadalupe. So, the Signal Hills was built by the Marine Ship County in Sickles, California. That's it, right? As you can see, everything, how was it made, when it was launched, when it was completed, and things like the engines and stuff. And with this, the company was manufactured by Elliott and Company, Jeanette Penn. So here's another picture of the Signal Hill. As you can see, it's ready to be launched. And it was actually launched in San Francisco, California. So this is a ceremony of the launching of the warship. So Mrs. Clarence W. Mayhow had the honor of christening by shattering the bottle of champagne against the bow of the 523 foot of the tanker. So on the bow of the stern, they actually painted the scene of the oil derricks from Signal Hill. So, in 1948, the ship changed hands and it was renamed Henry M. Dow's. So, the Henry M. Dow's was changed later on to the Guadalupe in 1963. So, some more information on the Guadalupe. It was widened and rebuilt in 1978 at Alabama Dry Dock and Shipbuilding Company in Alabama. It had new dimensions, 30 tanks, 208.3 meters, and eventually, in 2001, it was resold to the shipbreakers in India, and soon after it was broken down and they broke it apart, and that was the last time it sold. Yeah. But it had a long run, picture from the 1920s, but the school first started in 1924, and the original name was the Southern Western Military Academy, and it was located at 2065 Terry Avenue. So the cross streets are actually, if you're looking, going straight, is Cherry, and you're looking southbound. And the cross street is 21st Street, which originally was Catalina Street. So if you look towards where it says Winstead photo, if you look at that side, that's where the William Henshaw building would have been. And on the other side, if you go right to your right over here, it is actually Jesse Nelson's property. So in 1925, when it was sold to Major and Mrs. Wilbur J. Watkins, when they renamed it then Southern California Military Academy. It was a private military school that accepted boarding students and day school students, ages 6 to 18 years old. By 1931, it had 103 boarding students with tuition and board costing around $725, and today it would have been equivalent to about $13,813.
Surely you're not going to leave us hanging with that guy hanging. It's going to go away very quickly.
They were showing off.
There, he's sitting down.
So, in 1947, the school had changed names again, and it was under John Brown's. So he directed it from 1947 to 1980. Brown was a well-known educator and evangelist, and he was one of the founders of the John Brown University. By 1958, the Southern California Military Academy had 170 boarding students with a tuition and boarding cost around $115 per month, which would have been equivalent to $1,242 in 2024. And there were about 316 day students with tuition around $60 to $65 per month. And that would have been equivalent to about $648 to $702 in 2024. It had about 51 faculty and staff members. So here's John Brown addressing the military students. So, in 1980, Major George Herte and his wife, Maria, who worked as teachers and administrators and later headmasters of the Southern California Military Academy for almost 40 years, they took over the school. And as we see, the family bought the academy for less than $2 million at that time, which would have been equivalent to $8 million in today's day. And it continued to run as a private Christian-based military academy. Although the enrollment peaked at 400 cadets, the 1980 recession lowered this number and it never recovered. Here are some interesting facts about the military academy. The Daughters of the American Revolution in 1975 presented the school with a bicentennial marker recognizing it as the oldest and largest military academy on the West Coast, and one that contributes to the moral and to the military strength of this nation. In the summer of 1985, the military academy cadets were actually extras on the Sylvester Stallone movie Over the Top. In 1987, the Horte family sold the Southern California Military School to the Long Beach Unified District for $4.6 million, which would have been equivalent to $12.7 million today. And on August 29th, 2012, the school is called Jesse Nelson Academy. And when they open the doors, it actually has grades from 6th to 8th grade. So if you go down Cherry, behind one of the fences, there's actually a sign, a plaque dedicating it. And so in 2011, the alumni donated funds and negotiated with the school district to be allowed to place a bronze plaque on the school's southeast corner to commemorate the site's historical importance and to memorialize the people who attended this academy. So here are just pictures. It's just like this picture. As they were expecting all the beds, the soldiers, you get to see the frightened little boy. Here's another inspection. This is the Southern California Military Academy, their military band. So there are actually some famous military students. As we go through this list, the one name that actually stood out for me was Marquez Polk, who was a businessman, but I actually knew him as a former football player. Looking at the school, this actually reminded me when I briefly went to Pennsylvania, lived in Pennsylvania. They had the Hershey School, and it was very disciplined, like the academy. Give me a few more minutes.
And it means your dancer on Barnes. Yeah.
Oh, remember that?
Remember
Bridges.
Oh, what military brought up with them?
Yeah.
Okay. So the military school distinguished itself as the flagship of the local community whose alumni have served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Just want to thank everybody for coming again.
Thank you. Go back to that picture again, because it's amazing. Look in the background of
Yeah,
it.
you see the older.
Which one?
The last one, yeah.
Oh, the oil
The
thing.
oil fields.
You can't ever get away from the oil there.
Yes.
But as we move forward, in May, we're going to be discussing the 1950s. So right now, as we exit, I'm not sure if anybody has seen the exhibit yet, but we can take a walk over there. Hold on a second. We have a question. I forget questions.
Yeah, I have a question. The ship, Signal Hills,
Yes.
did it see any action at all?
In the research that I did, it did not. But
Wasn't it a tanker, not a military warship?
it pretty much was a tanker, so, but
Someone knew exactly.
it traveled a lot.
Just up and down the coast?
Up and down, and then it actually went to the East Coast a lot, because once they changed the names to the Henry M. Dow's, it was stationed